Things just got a little bit more interesting as regards Chapter 6 and the content to come. Fresh data mining by Temporyal seems to indicate that we are set to receive a second map in the later half of Chapter 6, possibly even with elements of naval combat. Outpost, Rush, and Frontlines are also set to make a return, alongside a new gadget in the Double Barrel Flarge Gun, so let's talk about what we know and what we can speculate. In terms of the new map, currently referenced as Pacific Ocean, it is unclear whether this is a working title, placeholder name, or actual name, though it is worth noting DICE has used working titles and placeholder names in the past, for example for Solomon Island, which was initially referred to as the Jungle Map in the files. Also, Pacific Ocean seems both a quite generic name and a little bit too similar to Pacific Storm, so I do expect the actual name of the map to differ from the current Pacific Ocean title, though time of course will tell. Which battle this is going to represent is a question that is, in terms of data mining, entirely unclear, though amongst the more likely candidates is most definitely the Battle of Okinawa. Okinawa, of course, has been referenced quite a few times already, specifically with the Commando Machete, which is a melee weapon internally referred to as the Okinawa Machete, and which is the unique unlockable melee weapon for the Misaki Elite, which of course everybody can unlock by completing the final tier of Chapter 6's progression. Something that, timing-wise, would make sense with a later map release in Chapter 6. Further to that, and frankly, to me at least even more interesting, is the Tetsu no Amo collection that has been available for purchase for Boins in the armory for quite some time now. According to Wikipedia, I'm well aware not the best of all sources, the Battle of Okinawa was referred to in Japanese as the Rain of Steel or Violent Wind of Steel. And yes, Tetsu no Ame translates to Rain of Steel and thus essentially means the Battle of Okinawa. But that of course is already entirely in the realm of speculation, so let's return to some of the things we know from Temporyal's data mining. The way we know of this map in the first place is via the Tides of War weekly assignments, though it's still unclear whether in week 8 or 9 of the chapter mission we have one of the nodes labelled as Win One Round on the Pacific Ocean. Additionally, thanks to the availability of map-specific settings, we also know that there will be a variety of vehicles available on the map, specifically airplanes, dinghies, and amphibious tanks. Now, whether amphibious tanks refers to a new class or variant of the existing LVT landing craft and Kami is, again, unclear, and not even Temporyal is entirely sure here. Though, as we will talk about later, there is of course the possibility of naval combat finally coming to Battlefield 5. Temporyal goes on to speculate that this will likely be a more vehicle-focused map overall, which makes sense both in context of Solomon Island being a mostly infantry-focused experience, at least on game modes other than Breakthrough, but also in light of further challenges contained in the same weekly Tides of War assignment referenced to earlier. Specifically, amongst the challenges are the tasks of killing one enemy with a dinghy boat and another task to roadkill one enemy with an airplane. Moving on from the map, we also have further information regarding one new gadget and returning game modes for the later part of Chapter 6. Firstly, as regards the game modes, Outpost, Frontlines, and Rush are supposedly all to feature in the later part of Chapter 6, with Rush even featured apparently on 2 separate occasions, that is of course 2 separate weeks. Now, whether this will include any of these game modes other than already of course Outpost making it onto some of the Pacific maps, or even the new Pacific map in Pacific Ocean, remains entirely unclear, but I do believe Frontlines and Rush should be relatively easy to implement on a number of the Pacific maps, given that they are essentially built around linear combat with specifically Breakthrough in mind. Now, regarding the new gadget, the Doppel Schuss, or Double Fire, Double Barrel Flarge Gun, that of course we already showed off in last week's episode of This Week on the Battlefield, but we now have an interesting description to go alongside with it, with clear reference to the usage of it by Germans in naval warfare. This ultimately is just another reference to naval warfare, of which of course there already has been countless before. Specifically amongst the more notable, in the game files we have reference to the Japanese float plane in the AGM-2 N, the model of the Kami, actually includes torpedoes, which are currently not in the game, which of course could correspond to the earlier mentioned amphibious tanks, and we have plentiful reference for quite some time now to the PT boats in the PT-1 MTB and Elco PT, which if implemented would likely function very similar to small attack craft. Lastly, on the note of new weapons, currently there's nothing explicitly in the weekly challenges or assignments, though as Temporyal does point out, this would be relatively easy for DICE to change in any coming update. It's no secret that DICE has countless finished or close to finished weapons already in the game files that would be appropriate for the Pacific settings. Amongst them, of course, just to name a few, are the M1903 Springfield and the M1917 Enfield rifles, but also the Type 44 Japanese carbine, likely to function as a bolt-action carbine for the medic class. All in all, none of this, of course, is set in stone. It's either data-mined information or flat-out good old speculation. What does seem more certain than not, however, is that Chapter 6 has yet some surprises in stock, and most likely we'll be getting a second map in the later half of the chapter. Why DICE has failed to communicate this to us so far remains entirely unclear, though at this point I'd like to give a massive shout out to Temporyal for his continued hard work and providing all the information that you pretty much found in this video. You'll find links to his Twitter and his YouTube down below in the description. I do highly recommend you check him out and give him a follow. That pretty much wraps it up for all additional content coming in Chapter 6. Feel free to share your own opinions down below. If you enjoyed the video, rating will be much appreciated. But with all that being said, I'd like to thank you very much for watching and hope to see you in the next Battlefield 5 video.